He doesn't have a no trade clause, but he kind of has something similar to that right now.
Documented that there have been a trade request.
I'm not going to speak on the Blazers. It's a lot of love and respect, but I don't.
Now at this point, we've been following the Damian Lillard saga very closely, and what started as something that could have been fixed almost immediately if things were handled in a particular way, slowly got worse and worse and worse, and at this point I have to admit, this is just sad. Before we get to the content, we're giving away multiple copies of NBA 2K24. All you have to do to enter is make sure you're following me on Instagram and on my Snapchat, because we're going to be posting it on my Instagram story and my Snapchat story. Now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. This is pretty much free money. We only need to correctly pick 2 squares to 3x our money on Prize Picks. And to celebrate the NFL season kicking off, Prize Picks is giving us a free square. All Dak Prescott needs is 1 passing yard in order to fulfill his square. So you combine that with Travis Kelce, who only needs 1 receiving touchdown, and in my opinion, this is a guaranteed win in our books. I don't care if you're the biggest Cowboy hater on earth, Dak Prescott will get 1 passing yard. And we all know Travis Kelce is definitely going to get 1 receiving touchdown. And if you haven't signed up for Prize Picks yet, you could match your initial deposit by using my promo code microphone when you sign up. That's promo code microphone when you sign up for Prize Picks, or just click on the link in the description down below. And thank you, Prize Picks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? We've been following the Damian Lillard saga for almost 3 years, and what started as Damian Lillard consistently reminding us of how loyal of a human being he is to the franchise that drafted him turned into something worse and worse and worse. It was almost as if throughout the last 3 years, Damian Lillard was getting a sign that, hey, maybe you should potentially demand a trade, or maybe you shouldn't sign a contract extension with the Portland Trail Blazers. After all, people tend to forget this, a basketball player isn't really bound to his original team for his entire career. He's really only bound to his original team for the first 7 years of his career, and that's assuming he gets a max contract extension following a first-round rookie salary. But putting that aside, players could actually opt out and become free agents. And that's what a lot of people tend to forget whenever we come to the case of Damian Lillard. To set the stage of where we are right now, you have to watch this interview Damian Lillard recently gave about how he refuses to speak to the team that he's been so loyal to.
I'm not going to speak on the Blazers. It's a lot of love and respect, but I won't speak on the Blazers.
It's well documented that there have been a trade request. Is to the Miami Heat. Is there anything that you could say about the trade request?
I can say that there was, and I would just prefer not to speak on the Trailblazers.
You see, in the 2019 to 2020 season, the Portland Trailblazers would lose in the first round to the Los Angeles Lakers. The next year, they would lose in the first round to the Denver Nuggets. Terry Stotts was scapegoated as the reason why they were not winning. So they brought on Chauncey Billups, and they finished 13th in the Western Conference following the 21 to 22 season. But at least they were starting to tank and get some pretty valuable assets in the form of lottery picks. So what did they do? Well, not only in that season did they decide that they were going to trade CJ McCollum, one of their franchise cornerstones, to the New Orleans Pelicans for Josh Hart, Thomas Satoransky, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and Didi Louzada. Not only did they do it so they could get a protected first-round pick and 2 second-round picks, but they were continuing to make moves that were indicative of a team that is heading towards a rebuild. Still, despite all of this, Damian Lillard swore his allegiance to the Portland Trailblazers and said so long as they are trying to contend, he will stay on Portland. The problem with this is that Damian Lillard signed a contract extension with the Portland Trailblazers in July of 2022. Now, I want you to understand, July of 2022 was past the point where the Portland Trailblazers drafted Shaedon Sharpe, the 7th pick in the NBA draft. It was past the point where the Detroit Pistons traded Jeremy Grant to the Portland Trailblazers. At this point, on July 29th, 2022, Damian Lillard knew who the Portland Trailblazers were. And going into the season, this time with a fully fairly healthy Damian Lillard in 2021 to 2022. He wasn't healthy. The Portland Trail Blazers marginally improved by like 6 games. And through it all, Damian Lillard was consistently saying to the Portland Trail Blazers, so long as you try to improve our team and get us to a point where we could win a championship, I would love to stay. The weird thing about this is Damian Lillard is under contract until the 2026 to 2027 season. He doesn't have a no trade clause either. He's not in Bradley Beal's situation. He already committed to the Portland Trail Blazers. So when the Portland Trail Blazers got the number 3 overall pick in this year's NBA draft and they had a transcendent talent, Scoot Henderson, fall to them with the number 3 pick, who by the way happens to play the same position as Damian Lillard, they had no choice but to select him. They did this despite Damian Lillard expecting them to trade this number 3 overall pick in order to make the Portland Trail Blazers a contender. Who the hell are you going to trade a number 3 overall pick for to improve your team currently and make them into a contender? You could trade that pick for Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, LeBron James, any player in the NBA, and I'm confident that you will still not win a championship with the way the Portland Trail Blazers are constructed. It's not that they're a bad team, it's the fact that this team has a plethora of youth, and the focal point of this team right now should be to develop said youth. So upon realizing that Damian Lillard wasn't going to get his way, he demanded a trade. But the way he demanded a trade was very unique because he didn't just demand a trade to a contending team. No, he demanded a trade to the Miami Heat. Here's the thing that's been occurring recently in the NBA. As we saw with Kyrie Irving last year in the offseason, and even James Harden currently, players that were once stars or currently are stars in the case of Kyrie Irving may not be as in demand as they once were, primarily due to the new CBA. You can't just be a star player, you have to be a star player that could without a doubt win an NBA championship or have a team built around him to win an NBA championship. In the case of Kyrie Irving, I think he's a very strong number 2 option, probably one of the best number 2 options in the NBA, but whenever you build a team around Kyrie Irving historically, he just wasn't able to win a championship. Whether that was due to injuries, whether that was due to, I don't know what the hell happened in year 2 with the Boston Celtics, but whatever happened there, whatever the reason may be, Kyrie Irving has now spent 7 years away from LeBron James and has not been able to win a championship without him. In the case of James Harden, he's had teams built around him consistently during the Houston Rockets era, and he was not able to win a championship, although he came very, very close in the 2017 playoffs, and I really wish we could have seen what would have happened had Chris Paul stayed healthy in that series versus the Golden State Warriors. Point being that teams are a little skeptical ponying up that much money if a player can't win them a championship. In the case of Damian Lillard, however, trade to the Miami Heat could potentially push them over the edge to become championship contenders. However, Damian Lillard only said he wanted to play for the Miami Heat. He balked at any possibility of joining the Boston Celtics. He didn't want to join the Brooklyn Nets. Hell, he didn't even want to join the Philadelphia 76ers. He was doing some pretty interesting stuff like playing a song named Miami in his live stream, and things would get progressively worse because while Damian Lillard wanted to go to the Miami Heat were trying their absolute best to lowball the Portland Trail Blazers. And this would continue on for quite some time. It got so bad that the NBA had to intervene and pretty much tell Dame,
yo, Dame, if you want to get traded, that's fine, but you can't say that you're gonna hold out if you get traded anywhere else but the team that you want to get traded to. That's not how it works.
And the crazy part is, I even said before the trade demand, going all the way back to May before the NBA draft even occurred, I said that Damian Lillard isn't loyal to the Portland Trail Blazers. Damian Lillard's loyal to the bag. And that's the big problem here. I mean, first of all, nothing wrong with chasing a bag. But chasing a bag and branding yourself as loyal is 2 different things. Let me tell you the right way to go about this. We just made a video on Giannis Antetokounmpo, how this could be the end of Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Milwaukee Bucks. It was our last video before this. And in that video, Giannis Antetokounmpo told all of Milwaukee and all of the NBA media back in 2021, coming off of a championship season, that one challenge was to bring a championship here. And we did. It was very hard, but we did. Very, very hard. I just love challenges. What's the next challenge? The next challenge might not be here. Me and my family chose to stay in this city that we all love and has taken care of us. For now, in 2 years, that might change. I'm being totally honest with you. I'm always honest. I love the city. I love this community and I want to help as much as possible. Bear in mind, Giannis and Dame, 2 completely separate situations. I mean, I'm sure Damian Lillard looked at what Giannis Antetokounmpo did in Milwaukee, how he signed a contract extension after the Milwaukee Bucks traded for Drew Holiday, and the result of him signing that Supermax contract extension was winning a championship with Milwaukee. And I'm sure Dame was very motivated by that. But in this particular instance, not only did Giannis Antetokounmpo tell us 1 year after his contract extension and a few months after becoming an NBA champion that he might leave Milwaukee, but he reminded us once again, just a week ago, coming straight from the Times. I would not be the best version of myself if I don't know that everybody's on the same page. Everybody's going for a championship. Everybody's going to sacrifice time away from their family like I do. And if I don't feel that, I'm not signing. This is quite literally the same exact thing that Damian Lillard has said over the past 3 seasons. Despite the Portland Trailblazers clearly not contending for championships, despite it being very apparent that the Portland Trailblazers are closer to tanking, with him on the roster by the way, as opposed to contending in the West, Damian Lillard still decided to sign a 2-year Supermax contract extension with the Portland Trailblazers. I can't blame him for doing this. I mean, 2 years and $120 million? That's more than all the money Shaquille O'Neal made in his loan contract with the Los Angeles Lakers. I can't blame Damian Lillard for signing a contract that pays him $120 million in a span of 2 years. But there's a reason why the Supermax contract exists. Because it's supposed to repay players for their loyalty to their original franchise or the franchise that they were traded to. So what are NBA players doing to try to get around this? Well, they're trying to sign their Supermax contract extensions with their original team, and then they're going to demand a trade. Bradley Beal executed this masterfully. He signed a Supermax contract extension with the Washington Wizards with a no trade clause, and then the Wizards had no choice but to trade him for pennies on the dollar to the Phoenix Suns. Yeah, he bamboozled his original team after all those years of service to them. And that's what Damian Lillard is trying to do here. And therein lies the problem. If you pay attention, the difference between what Giannis Antetokounmpo claims that he's going to do, because he still hasn't acted yet, versus what Damian Lillard is trying to do, is Giannis Antetokounmpo is warning the Milwaukee Bucks that if you don't build a contender around me, I'm just going to leave. I'm not going to sign a Supermax contract extension and act like a whiny little once you decide not to trade me. No, I'm going to maintain my leverage. I've made enough money. I really want to win, and I'd rather sacrifice cash in order to ensure that I am not in the same situation that Damian Lillard is in right now. Even furthermore, there's another big problem. Once you sign that Supermax contract extension, it becomes significantly more difficult for any other team to trade for you. In years past, it wasn't as big of a deal, but now we have a brand new collective bargaining agreement. The Boston Celtics definitely had to think over whether or not they were going to be able to move forward with both Jaylen Brown on a Supermax contract extension and to sign Jason Tatum to a Supermax next offseason. And those are 2 players that are homegrown talent for the Boston Celtics. So imagine a 34-year-old Damian Lillard. Would you really be willing to gut out the rest of your team's depth to sign players in the buyout market, sacrifice your ability to trade future draft picks, cripple your mid-level exception, just so you could pair Damian Lillard with potentially another Supermax player? The only team that makes sense for Dame is the Miami Heat at this point. So in this particular instance, I'm expecting 2 things. One, I'm expecting a lot more players to get ready to sign max contract extensions as opposed to Supermax contract extensions, unless they were drafted by that same team and were developed by that same team, because essentially having 2 players on a Supermax on your team now is the equivalent of having a big 3 of max contract players in 2020. And in the case of Damian Lillard, I think the saddest part of it all is the fact that he claims that he's this loyal player. He gives us these cryptic Instagram messages. He says that he's never going to run away from the grind. He blames the Portland Trailblazers for being so horrible to him and not being as loyal to him as he was to them. But bro, you gave up your leverage. You signed a Supermax contract with a team who hasn't had a generational prospect since they drafted Greg Oden. And you know how that went. So they're not just going to trade you for peanuts on the dollar. They have to do right by Shaedon Sharpe and Scoot Henderson. They have to get an adequate return for you. And if you wanted to make sure you were never in this situation to begin with, you wouldn't have signed a Supermax contract extension, but you did. And that's because you wanted the money. And that's okay. But at this point, you made your bed. Instead of crying and avoiding your front office and being a whiny little bitch about it, own up to it, smile that you're actually getting paid a ridiculous amount of money, tell the front office you want to be traded, but in the meantime, serve as a good mentor to the young assets that the Portland Trailblazers got and go play basketball, man. Who knows? You might be able to surprise some people with this young team. But that's my take on the matter. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Is Damian Lillard right? Are the Portland Trailblazers an evil organization for not donating Damian Lillard to the Miami Heat? I'd like to hear what you have to say. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.